Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Rick, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for a couple of minutes. How are you?
Oh, Matt, thank you. It's an honor to be on with you guys. My favorite place there. I went there on a 1-year deal and spent 10 years there, and absolutely, Sherry and I still kind of consider it home.
Man, you were here for so long, and through really transitional and formative years in the franchise as well, though, when you consider going from Mora to Ditka, then to Haslett, the first playoff win. Rick, I feel like I could just sit here and talk to you about Saints history, but, I mean, can I ask, do you have that memory, the moment? I mean, is it the 2000 playoff win? I mean, what is the moment that stands out the most when you think about my time in New Orleans is boom?
Yeah, that's you hit it. There's probably two things that stand out the most. I mean, out of nowhere in 1996, I had just gone with Jim there at the end, and to be named interim head coach of the Saints after being on the job for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it was an honor beyond what I could tell you, to be honest with you. From that day on, Sherry and I just fell in love with the place. But there's no question in terms of that ride in 2000 when Jim took over and Randy Mueller, they took over a 3-13 team that was really a disaster and had one of the real magical seasons that we had. We put it together without almost any draft choices. It was just an amazing ride. Everything came together, and then winning that first playoff game in franchise history, it doesn't probably mean as much now, obviously, with all the success that Sean and those guys have had. But at that point in time, it was a fantastic moment. I still have the picture of myself with Tom Benson right here on my desk in the locker room after the game, and that was just that whole season was just a phenomenal ride, Matt.
Hey, Rick, you always remember your first time is the first thing I asked you about. Don't think Saints fans have ever forgotten Hakeem drops the ball and Brian Milne. I mean, it's looking, and having played the Rams and lost the week before in Week 17. I mean, look, fans remember it, Rick.
It was incredible. We come out of that loss. Into the Rams, and if you remember, it seemed like a meaningless game going in. Marshall Faulk just killed us that day. I don't even know we were into it, and then all of a sudden, right after the game, about a half hour later, we find out that we've got to play the Rams again in 6 days. And I'll never forget it. Before the drop, we were just struggling. We started out that game, that first half, we just dominated them. I think it was something like 28-7. I mean, we dominated that playoff game, and then Warner got hot, and then we started making mistakes, and we had fumbles, and we just wore out. Really, 6 quarters of chasing that greatest show on turf around, we were worn out. And I'll never forget, we're going down to the wire, and Jim Haslett calls me in the press box, and he goes, "Rick, what the hell are we going to do?" And I remember, and honest to God, Matt, I remember saying to him like it was yesterday, "Jim, you better make some first downs because we're done." And you're exactly right. With 2 minutes to go, I would have had my heart in my throat. And when Milne got that, when he recovered that fumble, Hakeem drops the ball. Yeah, that's an all-timer right there.
Rick, if not to be the wet blanket, but if there's a counter moment to that, it has to have been the 2005 season. Post-Katrina, obviously it was a vagabond season. Yeah, just go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, it was just incredibly bad. In our case, it was an impossible situation. In our case there, everyone tried to do their best, but I thought it kind of brought out the worst in everyone right there. And there became a schism there between Jim and Tom, and all of a sudden it just went from bad to worse. I can't express to you what it was like on a daily basis, but it just didn't end well, and I don't think it really had to be that way. But it is what it is, and it's a results game. And like I said, they got crosshaired on that over there in San Antonio, and the result was what it was. I know myself. I had planned to live in New Orleans the rest of my life, and But then when we didn't have the option, we had to look onward, and that's when I ended up going to St. Louis.
Did you ever think, and I promise it's not going to be all nostalgia. There's some current, Rick works on the Colts Radio Network right now. There's some current NFL stuff I want to delve into, but could you have ever imagined leaving the Saints after 2005, which was just such a disastrous year for every reason, personally and professionally, football and just the city and everything. Could you have ever imagined that the Saints would win a Super Bowl?
Well, that's interesting, because I think what's lost in the Katrina season is that Jim really did a pretty good job there. I mean, I think he had one losing season. We had a couple of 8-8s and 9-7s, and didn't measure up to that first year. And I think when you have that great first year and you don't measure back up, you're always a disappointment. But in my heart, until the Katrina season, I always felt like we would definitely contend and we could be there. And then, we kind of struggled, and Aaron Brooks, he had played well for us early and then really struggled. And I always felt like, if we can just, weather this storm, get back to New Orleans, get ourselves a quarterback. And I told Jim that when he was getting cross-haired with Tom, I said, we go back to New Orleans, we'll get this thing done. You'll be able to get a quarterback, and we'll move on. So I had never ever looked at it from that negative of standpoint, but there is no question what Sean Payton has done there. I mean, that whole operation, I mean, that's one of the most successful operations in all of football. And, other than a freak or a bad call, really this team should be in about probably the last 2 out of 3 Super Bowls. So it's become a really good program. Now the jury will be out once that Drew Brees ends up calling it a day, because as good as the team is, you can't lose a Hall of Fame guy and not pay some consequence.
Rick Venturi is our guest. Staying as close to the league as you are, what is your thought on a guy like Jameis Winston, who apparently is going to be, the short term anyway, successor for Drew Brees?
Well, he's probably with the most perfect coach. I always and the other thing I think that has transitioned with the Colts, with the Saints, and I make that mistake all the time here, to tell you the truth. But the Saints, now play very good defense. For many years there in Brees' early careers, every game was a shootout, and if they needed 44, they'd get 44, and they may give up 43. But that's changed in the last couple of years. I think, their defense is very formidable, very stout, so I don't think you need 44. And the biggest thing that Sean will have to do with Winston, and I have a lot of confidence in Sean. I always said that my dear wife, Miss Sherry, I always said if Miss Sherry was his quarterback, he'd figure out a way to get 20. But I think the biggest thing with him will be to get Winston to play within himself. He's always been a guy that overreach, that tries to make every play. Tremendously talented kid, can put up big numbers offensively. And I think the biggest chore that Sean will have is to extract the immense talent he has, but get him to cut down on the mistakes, get him to not be in that mood that he has to win with every throw. Because I think Jameis is a tremendous athlete, and I think he's a much better leader than people think in that locker room. So, that is going to be really interesting. That's kind of a reboot. We're going through the same thing with this, with this Carson Wentz. We got a kid with great, great talent who has done it, and now we have to see if we can reboot him after the 2020 season.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.